What is quacking, everybody? This is Jump Quacks. I talk about games and stuff because I like games and I like stuff. So, 3D Zelda. Yesterday, Nintendo had a whole showcase. They talked about their new 2D Zelda where you play as Zelda and you can like use enemies to do stuff with puzzles and stuff like that. Looks cool. Looks great. Definitely gonna be playing that. Looks pretty fun, and it has the toy art style that Link's Awakening had or whatever. But I'm here to talk about 3D Zelda and the future of 3D Zelda because that's the ones I'm the most interested in overall. Like the 3D Zeldas, just they hit. You got Twilight Princess, Majora's Mask. I don't like Wind Waker, Ocarina of Time. So you have these 3D Zeldas. Skyward Sword's pretty good too. And then obviously you have Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, which are unequivocally bangers. But the one thing about these titles is they don't feel really Zelda-y in ways. Not saying that these games are bad. These games are fantastic. The open world aspect, the different abilities that you get in both games, how they switch up the formula a little bit in both of them. But these are definitely a new type of Zelda formula where it's like open world, you can literally just go right to the end. And Breath of the Wild, you can literally just go right up to Ganon, smack him around in like 15 minutes. Tears of the Kingdom, I think it takes a little bit longer because you have to like go into the underground or whatever. I haven't seen too many speedruns on Tears of the Kingdom, but just like looking at it, you just go down, just like makes the Ganon fight harder if you don't go and do stuff. But hey, the fight looks fantastic. Don't get me wrong, that Ganon fight in Tears of the Kingdom, I've seen it. That looks amazing. But besides that, the games just don't really feel too Zelda-y. Like, I always see people giving these games praises, but there's always, like, still some caveat that some Zelda fans have put on it where it's just like, it just doesn't really... It's great, it's amazing Zelda game, but, like, I kind of want that traditional Zelda back. And if you don't know how Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom plays, you must be living on a rock, you don't own a Switch, you don't own a Wii U, because you can get Breath of the Wild on Wii U. It's open world Zelda. You start off on like a little tutorial island that kind of shows you how to play. And then you get your abilities, you go down, you can literally do whatever you want. You can go explore, get shrines to get more hearts and stamina, get like different weapons, and you're not just stuck with one sword. You can get different weapons, different shields, different bows. They have different attributes and stuff. And I think that's like a good quality in the game as well, is just the different weapons and the weapon durability system. So you have all that stuff. And you just kind of just can go do whatever you want. There's only 4 dungeons though, and you just do the 4 dungeons, and then you go fight Ganon. I think there's like 5 though in Tears of the Kingdom, if I'm not mistaken. There's like a 5th type thing, but overall there's like quests, different quest lines and shrines and shit that you do in the game, compared to traditional Zelda where it's a more linear focused thing. You need to get items to progress farther into the story. So like in the dungeons, the first half of the dungeons, you don't really have the new item, but then you get the new item and then you use the new item and like go back through the dungeon and unlock doors, and like they affect, the overworld surroundings. Like in Majora's Mask, you can't get to the ranch on the first day unless you've cleared Snowhead, got the Goron Mask, and the Powder Keg license. Otherwise, you can't get to the ranch on the first day. You have to wait till the 3rd day after, the aliens already attack and stuff like that. So it's just progression like that. You can't get to the water temple in Ocarina of Time unless you get iron boots. So all those different things. It's a more linear focus with the older Zeldas. And I like those to a degree, but I also understand why they want to give us more freedom, because that's something that a lot of people like. They like freedom of choice, and just kind of being able to like role play as Link and just go through the game, do whatever they want, etc., etc. So there's a couple different things they can do, and stuff like that to fix that. But the community sentiment is just like, oh, some of these, the new Zelda games are great, but kind of would like something like the old games. And then you have, Eiji Aonuma, the person who works on Zelda, talking about future Zelda titles, and they still want to explore the possibilities of an open world Hyrule. So the classic design is not coming back whatsoever. They definitely still want to focus on that, freedom and, giving people that, exploration of the newer games, which, I think they said something in an interview where it's like that's why it's called Breath of the Wild, is because they want you to explore this open area. And Aonuma also said that the timeline, the Zelda timeline, can put certain Zelda games in a box, and that's why Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom feel confusing timeline-wise as a community. But the statement kind of comes off to me as just like they kind of adhere to the timeline, but it definitely feels like the timeline makes them creating games a little bit difficult. They're just like, oh, like we have to adhere to the timeline, and the timeline definitely does put these games in a certain like shoehorn and a type of like area. So, and it makes fans feel a little kind of weird about these games. So the team still just focusing on, this new open world Hyrule. What could they do to appease the fans who want a more traditional Zelda, but still keep the open world aspects? Because I love my long dungeons. I like the snow dungeon from Twilight Princess. Also, Arbiter Grounds was fantastic in Twilight Princess. I absolutely like Snowhead. Like almost all the dungeons besides Stonehead Tower in Majora's Mask, fantastic. Snowhead's alright, not a huge, it's whatever. Shadow Temple, Spirit Temple, and Ocarina of Time were some of my favorite dungeons. Earth Temple and Wind Waker. So you have all these different dungeons that feel great. They're just long, very puzzle focused dungeons, and that's like what Zelda thrives at the most, is like these puzzle focused dungeons. So I've always wanted more, especially when Tears of the Kingdom came out. My number one hope was like, please just give me like 7 big dungeons to just explore. Like I would have taken like less shrines, more dungeons. Like that's what I want as a fan. Probably not every fan wants that. That's just me personally. I think probably the perfect Zelda that does blend these things together. Granted, it's early on. It's the first Zelda game in the series, Zelda 1 on the NES. It's the first one, but it definitely has that open world exploration aspect with the, hey, you gotta go clear these dungeons. Because at the beginning of Zelda 1, Zelda 1's just an open world game. But you still have to go do the dungeons, get different things and stuff like that. And what they could do is they could take inspiration from that. Because in Zelda 1, what you can do in the game is before you even step foot in the first temple, you can get the upgraded sword, get the blue magic ring that makes you take less damage, and go in there and just wreck everything. You can get bombs. Bombs randomly drop by enemies, by the way. So they could still keep the type of like weapon formula from Tears of the Kingdom Breath of the Wild, still like, oh, hey, like, let's give them like, droppable weapons. Or maybe like we get to forge weapons in a way. Just give us like a limited supply of weapons that, we can pick up from enemies and like, forge or whatever, the bows and everything. But we can gear up before that first dungeon, but it's just like, hey, one of the main story pieces is in dungeons. Because like the shrines aren't mandatory. You don't have to beat them, but some linearity would be nice in these games. I don't think they're gonna do it. It is kind of nice that you can just go up and run and smack Ganon, whatever. It adds difficulty to the fight too if you don't clear these dungeons and stuff. But I think adding, these dungeons with more story and stuff like that. So more dungeons, more depth, more story would be fantastic. And they could still also take some exploration from A Link Between Worlds, because you can rent those weapons, and so you can like rent the bows and stuff like that. Something like that where it's just like, more of like a weapon shop that we can go to, or maybe like a tool shop, like let us go rent specific things or go buy specific things, maybe scatter them out around the world. So it's just like, oh man, new playthrough, instead of buying X item first, maybe go buy Y item first. So it's just like the playthrough's completely different from your previous one. You're exploring a different region with different gear, and something like that would be very nice to just kind of blend the old and the new together for 3D Zelda. And that's just kind of like what I want. Would be very nice, is more dungeons, still the same exploration, and just a different, deeper story in a way with Zelda. Like Ocarina of Time, for example. Like imagine if they just remade Ocarina of Time with Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom aspects, where it's like, yeah, you have all this freedom, but it's just like, now you still can't kill Ganon. You gotta go do these temples. You gotta go do these dungeons. You gotta, you know, do these different things. That would be incredible. And I think that's something that, like, if they find a way to do these different things, I think that's definitely, a step that can still redefine these open world genres because, when Breath of the Wild came out, that really did kind of redefine how open world games should be looked at in a way. We still had open world games that were still amazing. You had Bethesda before their issue. You had New Vegas, Fallout 3. You had, just other open world games in general before Breath of the Wild, some Ubisoft games that weren't absolute garbage. We had games like Grand Theft Auto, Red Dead Redemption, all these different games were still before Breath of the Wild, but they came in and they redefined how open world could be. And a lot of, studios and stuff like that have taken notice. Have they done what Zelda can do? Some, yes, some, no. But this is still like a way that, Zelda can just kind of still redefine the future and still, maybe combine something like a heavy Baldur's Gate storyline with their incredible open world aspects and just mix them together. And it's great. It'll be great. Because, Nintendo always pushes out, you know, meta and genre pushing ideas for their games. Like Mario every single time just like pushes platformers to their, like Mario Odyssey is like a new standard for 3D platformers. So it's stuff like that. Nintendo's capable of doing these things. Zelda's like a fantastic franchise for fantasy adventure games. So still have hope. I have high hopes for the series all the time. Like Zelda's just a fantastic series. I've been growing up with it. So it's going to be nice to see what they do with it in the future, even if it's something that's like not really, it's not catered to me, if we're not going to get the classic dungeon system back, that's fine, whatever. I'll still play whatever, Zelda open world mega haven for the Nintendo Switch 2. I'll still play that because it's going to be great. I know it's going to be fantastic. I definitely enjoyed Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. But, yep, these are just my thoughts, my opinions. Let me know what you think. And if you're still here at the end, thanks for watching. There should be like 4 other videos of mine that you can go watch. I publish them all simultaneously to start this new channel because I'm like, hey, I just want to talk about games and make low edited content. So if you want to do me a favor, go check out those videos as well and subscribe. I would appreciate that. And I will see you in the next one. Take care.